He found a strange cone on the fallen tree, one that pulsed with light. What was inside made him question the privacy of an entire city. Tell me in the comments where you're watching this story from, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.
The night had been restless. A storm had torn through the sleeping suburb, unleashing its fury before drifting away, leaving behind puddles like small lakes on the asphalt, broken branches, and the sharp scent of wet earth. The streets were empty, washed in the yellow glow of streetlights where the last raindrops still danced in the air. A police cruiser glided slowly along the slick road. Behind the wheel sat Officer Dennis Parker, a man in his 40s with a weary but alert face. His shift was almost over, and all he could think about was a hot cup of coffee and his couch. This was a quiet, model neighborhood, the kind of place where the worst crime in a year was someone leaving the trash can out on the wrong day. His eyes drifted over the familiar yards, neat lawns, trimmed hedges, porches with wicker furniture. Then something caught his attention, a detail that didn't belong. On the front lawn of house number 214 lay a fallen tree. But it wasn't just any tree. Dennis slowed the cruiser, pulled over, and stepped out. The air was cool and damp. He walked closer, his boots sinking into the soaked grass. The tree wasn't like any he'd seen before. Not an oak, not a maple. Its trunk, as thick as a man's thigh, was an unnaturally straight and smooth, a dark bronze color with a faint metallic sheen. The bark wasn't rough, but looked more like the skin of some exotic fruit or scales. Instead of leaves, its branches sprouted thin, translucent needles that shimmered faintly and gave off a soft, crystalline chime whenever the wind brushed past them. What the hell? He thought. A decorative species? But who would plant something like this in their front yard? Then he saw it. Suspended among the glass-like branches, cradled in the thickest fork, was something that made him doubt his senses, a massive cone the size of a car tire. Its shape was flawless, as if carved by an obsessive craftsman. The surface was patterned with raised, glowing veins that pulsed with a dim, steady light, like a heartbeat in sleep. Dennis circled the tree. There were no signs, no markers. It had simply appeared there, resting on the immaculate lawn, an alien artifact dropped by the storm. The windows of the nearby houses were dark. No one seemed to have noticed. He reached for his radio. "Dispatch, this is 7 Adam 15. I'm at Elm Avenue, number 214. Got a fallen, unidentified tree here. Doesn't match any known type." He hesitated, searching for words. "You might want to send a unit. Maybe someone from the botanical department, too. You won't believe it until you see it." Lowering the radio, he pulled out his flashlight and aimed the beam at the cone. The veins glowed faintly, catching the light like mother of pearl. The air around the tree felt thicker, heavier, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The usual hum of the neighborhood was gone. Only the delicate, eerie ringing of the glass needles filled the silence. This wasn't just a botanical anomaly. It was a warning, or a message. And Dennis Parker, though he didn't know it yet, had just become its first recipient. Less than an hour had passed. Dawn was just beginning to smudge away the night, painting the sky in shades of dirty gray, when reinforcements arrived on Elm Avenue. 2 patrol cruisers, a forensics van, and, oddly enough, a city landscaping truck. The neighbors, roused by the noise, shuffled out onto their porches in robes, phones in hand, recording the scene. Dennis Parker stood off to the side, sipping what was now cold coffee from his thermos, watching the chaos he'd set in motion. His colleagues had cordoned off the yard with yellow tape, though it wasn't clear whether they were protecting the fallen tree or keeping the gawkers back. 2 crime scene techs in white coveralls, Anna and Mike, approached the strange trunk. Anna, a sharp-featured woman with an analytical gaze, frowned immediately. "What is this, Parker? Some kind of performance art?" "Don't think so. Take a look at that." He shined his flashlight at the massive cone. The slow, rhythmic glow from within looked even more unsettling in the dim pre-dawn light. Mike gave a low whistle. "Hell of a pine cone. Looks like it came off a giant insect." A city groundskeeper named Jerry, gray-haired and weathered, scratched his head as he stepped closer. 40 years I've been at this job. Never seen anything like it. Not a local species, that's for sure. Doesn't look man-made either. It's like it's alive." "Alive or not, we need to see what's inside," Anna said, opening her case of instruments. "Mike, get the sample containers ready. Officer Parker, stand clear." She pulled on reinforced gloves and picked up a small electric saw. The thin blade screeched as it bit into the cone's base. Instead of the expected crack of wood, it made the sound like cutting thick plastic. A faint spray of sparks shot out, along with a sharp ozone-like smell, the kind that lingers after lightning. It took a few minutes to cut through. When the cone finally came loose and hit the tarp with a dull thud, everyone fell silent. Anna carefully pried apart the glossy scales with metal tongs. They resisted, hissing softly as they peeled away. Inside wasn't wood or seeds, but something else entirely. Nestled within was a tangled mass of pale, translucent filaments, almost like a cluster of veins or glassy worms, woven into a dense neural web. Between them sat dozens of tiny capsules filled with faintly glowing liquid, and at the very center, encased like a pit inside a fruit, was a small metallic core, dark, cold, with a single blue LED pulsing weakly. "Jesus," Mike whispered, filming everything. That's some kind of circuitry." "Biocircuitry," Anna corrected, her voice trembling with fascination. "Look here." She pointed with her tweezers to the place where the filaments connected to the inner walls of the cone. "They've fused with the organic tissue. This thing isn't built, it's grown." Jerry went pale, backing away slowly, crossing himself. That's not right. That's devil's work." Dennis stepped closer, his pulse quickening as his eyes locked on the metallic core. It looks like a drive or a transmitter." Anna nodded slightly, eyes narrowing. "A biorelay," she murmured. "Someone or something grew this tree as a surveillance device. And those capsules," she gestured toward the glowing spheres, "might be power cells or data storage." They stood there, 3 silhouettes over the tarp, staring down at the opened enigma. The morning breeze made the glassy needles on the branches whisper faintly. The silence wasn't oppressive anymore. It was deafening. They hadn't uncovered a botanical oddity. They had dissected a piece of technology, a living machine whose purpose none of them could begin to understand. And on that metallic seed in the center, the tiny blue light kept pulsing, steady, calm, like the breathing of something that had only just begun to wake. The forensic lab buzzed like a hive that had just been struck with a stick. The half-dismantled cone lay inside a sealed glass enclosure on the central table, part terrarium, part containment unit. Around it clustered technicians, programmers, and senior officers dragged from their beds before sunrise. The air was thick with tension, the smell of burnt circuitry, and too much coffee. Dennis stood by the wall, feeling out of place. He was the one who'd found the damn thing, but now it belonged to the people in white coats. "No known pathogens," reported Anna, her eyes on the spectrometer readout. "The liquid inside the capsules is a complex electrolyte with rare earth traces, non-toxic." The lead programmer, Leo, a thin man with jittery hands and tired eyes, was bent over the metallic core. He'd managed to connect it to an isolated workstation through a makeshift adapter. "This isn't just a storage device," he muttered, fingers flicking across the keyboard. "It's some kind of hybrid system. Part silicon, part organic polymer. Brilliant and horrifying." Lines of code began to race down the monitor, far too fast to read. "Can you break in?" asked the department chief. Leo smirked faintly. "I don't break in. I negotiate. It's not hostile. Feels like it's been waiting to connect." After a tense moment, the main screen went black, then flickered back to life. A simple interface appeared. Plain text, neatly arranged folders, each labeled with a date. Thousands of them. "What's inside?" Dennis asked quietly, stepping closer. Leo clicked open the earliest folder. It contained a massive collection of audio files. He double-clicked one at random. From the speakers came the sleepy voice of a little girl. "And then the unicorn said I could touch his horn, but only if I didn't tell anyone?" The sound was crystal clear, as if the microphone had been placed right beside her pillow. Leo's expression drained of color. He opened another folder. Video files. Footage from a high vantage point showed ordinary streets, people walking their dogs, talking, laughing, unaware they were being watched. The next folder held phone call recordings. The next, brainwave scans decoded into coherent sentences, emotions, fragments of thought. Someone in the room whispered, "Dear God, this is surveillance. Total surveillance." They kept opening files, intimate conversations, arguments, love confessions, business deals, whispered prayers, private dreams. The entire hidden life of an unsuspecting neighborhood. Anna turned slowly toward Dennis, her face chalk white. "The tree, it wasn't just growing here. It was listening, watching, reading, for years, maybe decades. It was harvesting." Leo leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "That cone isn't a fruit. It's a report, a data harvest. And judging by the timestamps, this isn't the first one." Dennis stared at the screen, his neighbors' lives flashing by, his own voice among them, patrol logs, private calls, thoughts he'd believed were his alone. He felt his stomach twist. This wasn't just espionage, it was desecration. Someone had grown the perfect spy, invisible, organic, patient. And now that they'd uncovered it, one question hung in the air like a lead weight. If this was only one relay, one route in a much larger network, where had all that data been going? And who was the gardener that had planted it?